Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, we're at the Motor City Mad Mouth, and we're glad folks can join us tonight. A great crew on hand to talk about a lot of National Football League topics. We're going to lead it off with Rick Curti. Welcome back, Rick.
Thanks for having me on the program, Scott. It's nice to see everybody.
Good to see you too. All right, Steve Balestrieri, how you been?
Hanging in there, feeling a little bit better every day. So looking forward to the discussion tonight.
All right, and Mel Farr Jr., welcome back.
Great to be back. Great to see everybody.
And Greg Fuchs, for as long as we have him, kidding with you. Hopefully internet connection is good enough. If not, we'll take whatever Greg we can get out of him.
Glad to see all you guys. And there was a rarity this weekend. Both Miami football teams won. So let's keep it going.
Well, there you go. All right. And of course, I'm your host, Scott Morganroth, Motor City Mad Mouth. I'm the owner and publisher of the South Florida Tribune, and we have a lot of good stuff that are working on, and we want to thank Candy Abling, who does a wonderful job as a web designer, for all she does to make sure the shows go up as well as all the content. With that said, okay, we're going to talk Miami Dolphins football with the man who wrote a story, Greg Fuchs. And Greg, first of all, they defeated the Houston Texans. They faced Baltimore Thursday night on Veterans Day. Just for the record, I saw a Veterans Day game many years ago as Detroit took on the San Diego Chargers. I know Mel works on the geography a little bit, but no, this time it was the San Diego Chargers. Okay, just kidding with you. When Bobby Ross was the coach, and Bobby Ross subsequently became the head coach of the Detroit Lions after that game. All right, Greg, why don't you give everybody an overview of what you wrote, and I'll have the panel comment on it.
Sure. And as I wrote in my article, a win is a win, and you should never apologize for a win. That said, if there was ever a win to apologize for, it was this past weekend. Because both teams were terrible. I mean, if you guys didn't have the chance to see it, consider yourself lucky. But both teams were embarrassingly inept. I mean, the two teams combined for 9 turnovers. The quarterbacks were sacked 9 times. Houston was in the red zone 4 times, 0 touchdowns. I think Miami averaged 1.9 yards per carry against one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. And Tyrod Taylor, who I generally thought was an underrated quarterback, and he has torched the Dolphins several times over the years, especially when he was back with the Bills, he was terrible. Just some god-awful passes. He missed Amendola one time, wide open for a touchdown. And then he had one of the worst plays I've seen all season, like a minute and a half to go before halftime. He was under a pressure again, which he was all game. And as he was running out of bounds, he decided to flip the ball downfield, right to Jerome Baker, the Dolphins linebacker. Dolphins get the ball on the 26-yard line, score a touchdown a minute later, 17-6 at the half. And that was pretty much the game. The second half was real exciting. 1 field goal by the Texans, and that was it. So a horrendous exhibition of NFL football. And a win's a win still. But, man, the Dolphins need to improve by tomorrow night. Or Thursday night. Because the Ravens will just shellac them if they play the way they did against the Texans.
So I guess to summarize it, you're saying it's a game that nobody wanted to win, but the Miami Dolphins did it to win. To improve.
Now, I want to give some credit to the Dolphins defense because they held Houston to 73 yards rushing and they pressured Taylor all game. But I'm not sure how much was the Dolphins defense and just an awful Texans offense.
All right, for all you individuals wondering why I'm wearing a Jacksonville Jaguars hat, let me get that out on the record quickly. Misery breeds company. So the Miami Dolphins lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and later in the show, the Buffalo Bills did. So there you go. That's what the Dolphins and the Bills have in common. We'll get to that. They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars. With that said, Rick Curti, what are your thoughts about the Dolphins win?
It was ugly, and Jacksonville's was even uglier. They were terrible, but a win's a win. Hey, they won. It's a W. It counts. Wish I could say the same about my Panthers. They were terrible, but hey, a win's a win, and they won, but they played, the Bills. I don't know what's going on with them. They've been a disappointment so far this season. I had Josh Allen as my MVP pick this year. And I mean, he sacked himself. What does that tell you?
Yeah,
So
we'll get to that game shortly. I want to just focus
sure.
on the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans for a moment, Rick.
Yeah, so it just was not a good game. The Texans are just a mess with this whole Deshaun Watson ordeal, whether they trade him or not. And Tyrod Taylor, I mean, I've never been too high on him. I always just thought he was just a journeyman quarterback that goes from team to team. He's just someone there to put in there while you get your franchise quarterback there or something like that. But Texans are just really, really bad. And they just look incredibly incompetent as not only as a football team, but as an organization. You just scratch your head and try to figure out what in the world are they doing. So not a pretty game, but a win's a win, like you said. And we'll see what happens for the Dolphins the next game.
Yeah,
they got to get better, though.
I guess you could concur with Greg, though, Rick, that Baltimore will whack them pretty good if they can't get it figured out pretty quickly, right?
Definitely. I mean, Baltimore is playing good. They did have that terrible loss against the Bengals. That was another head scratcher there. But they'll put it together. That was an ugly loss, but they're a really good team. Lamar Jackson will just run all over the Dolphins. And the Ravens will win that one easily. So Dolphins just got to get better. And I don't know what to say. It's just a win's a win, but it was an ugly win.
No question. All right, Steve Balestrieri, take a crack at this Dolphins Houston Texans football game, as they call it.
Yeah, it was funny because I watched the highlights of the game, or lowlights if you want, and then I read Greg's piece, and I was laughing when I was reading it because he didn't pull any punches, but I couldn't agree with them more. The game was really ugly. I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. I really did because, as he pointed out in his piece, in the past, Tyrod Taylor has had a lot of success against Miami, and I figured that would carry over. But, I mean, he hadn't played in quite a while, and you could tell he was terrible. That was among the worst games I've seen Taylor play. I've never been a big Taylor fan, but, he's always done fairly well, and this wasn't one of them. I mean, that interception was just awful. And then, as he pointed out, that pass, Danny Amendola was wide open for a touchdown. That should have been a gimme. It was just a really ugly football game. 9 turnovers. I mean, there's not much more you can say on it. But, in the end, nobody cares about style points. And, it counts for a win in the W column. And, Miami was a team that really needed a win. And that was, I'm not going to say what the doctor wrote it because that's not the way I'm sure they drew it up. But at the end of the day, a really ugly win is better than a pretty loss. So.
I think a lot of Detroit Lions fans should know that feeling, knowing that they lost 2 games on last-minute field goals with the Minnesota Vikings and the Baltimore Ravens. That's why they're 0-8. We're not going to talk about the Lions much, but I just want to validate what Steve said. Who needs a very pretty loss? So the Lions are still sitting at 0-8. All right, Mel, the Dolphins and the Texans. What are you taking out of that?
Well, I think it's a game that, that Miami that was set up for them to win. I mean, Houston, as we've talked about before, it's a dumpster fire over there. And I feel bad for the coach that, he finally, after all this time, he gets a head coaching job and he's like, yes, I got Deshaun Watson. Then all of a sudden, no, I don't have Deshaun Watson. And then I have Tyrod Taylor, who's proven throughout his career that he's just, he's a good backup. He's a stopgap type of person. If your starter gets hurt, you plug him in there for a game or two and just hope that he can, keep things steady for you. But Miami, I think that's a game that they had to win. I mean, there's some pretty high expectations for the Dolphins this year, and I think for that coaching staff, this is a game that they had to have, and I think it was teed up for them because of everything that's going on with the Texans right now. But Tua, he's proven to be, he's he's got this injury prone. He just can't stay healthy. That's been a problem for the Dolphins, obviously, because he just hasn't been able to get that chemistry with some of the receivers that they have. So it's unfortunate for that coaching staff because I know they're under fire right now. And, like you said, like Steve said, an ugly win is better than pretty loss. So they got a W. Hopefully they can get some momentum going here. Tua may or may not be back next week. We'll have to wait and see. But at least it gets them a W, and they can hopefully build off of this.
Yeah, I can see the cat calls coming from the Miami Dolphins fans with Stephen Ross, the owner. They're going to try to lure Jim Harbaugh to South Florida. You never know. I wouldn't be surprised at some point. They may try. Whether they do it or not remains to be seen. But you know what? I like to read a lot. And some of the opinion is that Jim Harbaugh, University of Michigan alumnus, Stephen Ross, we'll see. I don't know. I think Brian Flores makes it through his 5 years. And if he does, he'll have to overhaul the coaching staff. We'll leave it at that. All right, let's go on to another big story that occurred over the week. Now, 3 words: Aaron Rodgers drama. Okay, I'm thinking about the word immunize. Okay, first of all, immunize, and then he's had to backtrack 9 million times. In my opinion, I've always said follow the science, but Aaron Rodgers needs to do a lot of good PR because he vowed to never play for the Packers again, and now he looks bad. I'm not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. I'm leaving it to you guys to talk about it. Greg, for as long as we have you, I'd like to kid around with you tonight. Get your Aaron Rodgers comment in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put a whole lot of stock in what athletes say to reporters, okay? And because they can't always tell the truth. And in Rodgers' case, he was dancing around the truth. And I think it was pretty obvious from the first time he said he was immunized versus vaccinated. I took that automatically was he wasn't vaccinated. And should he have been a little more truthful? Yes. Does it deserve all the attention it has gotten over the last week or so? I think it's been overblown. Now, someone may argue, well, if he got vaccinated, he wouldn't have caught COVID. Obviously, would have improved his chances of not getting COVID, but we know getting the vaccine is not 100% foolproof. So it's not much to do about nothing, but it's not as big a deal to me as everyone's making it out to be.
It's fair enough. Okay, Mel, what are your thoughts about Aaron Rodgers?
I think people feel misled. When Aaron was asked a question, he was asked a question directly, are you vaccinated? He said, yes, I'm immunized. So he's saying, yes, I'm immunized, a play on words. Aaron Rodgers always thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, went to Cal. He's very careful about what he said and how he said it. And I think it is, a big deal. I mean, this, we've been battling this thing here for how long now? We've been battling this virus. And, a lot of people have lost their lives because of it. Now, if somebody would have asked a follow-up question, then maybe he would have divulged the fact that he was not vaccinated. But because he kind of played on words a little bit, he said, yes, I'm immunized. They kind of took that as, and then went on talking about people, so some other players on the team who haven't got the vaccine, who aren't vaccinated. So that made it seem like he was vaccinated. So I think the media is upset because I think people feel deceived. They feel lied to. But Aaron, he's very careful in the words that he chose and saying that he didn't lie. And he's truthful in saying that. That's a fact. But he was very misleading. And I think that's where people have a problem with it. And if he received preferential treatment, if the Packers received some preferential treatment, if they treated him differently, if he wasn't doing the things that he was supposed to be doing as a unvaccinated player, then that's going to be a problem. And the NFL is doing their little investigation, and we'll see what comes out of it. But other than that, it's not, is it the end of the world? No. But, people want to have something to talk about. And that's this week here. That's the hot topic this week is Aaron Rodgers and his vaccination status, the fact that he did get COVID and we've come to find out that he was not vaccinated. So, but, I think it's a big deal because I think a lot of people think it's a big deal because he misled folks.
Yeah, I think another thing that we should point out is the Green Bay Packers have been running scared with Rodgers. Number one, they don't want to lose him, so they're willing to go out of their way to what they want to do to keep him another year. So,
I don't blame him the way that Jordan Love looked when he played.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. I think
that didn't look good.
No, I know. I think a lot of people realize they could have won that game if Rodgers were there. And since that loss, and then if they're not available on next weekend when they play Seattle, then you wonder about their Super Bowl chances, home field advantage, and everybody knows you'd rather have those games in the cold frigid weather. But yeah, no, I'm with you, Mel, all the way. That could bite them later on. All right, Steve. But yeah, I think the Packers are running. They're willing to give them a little bit more rope. They have all year to try to do what they can to keep you supportive. And let's think about the Wisconsin area for a moment, okay? Ryan Braun would have gotten torched in any other market with the steroid scandal, but because you have a mild media market, I think the New York media would have gotten it out of them more so than the Wisconsin media, because they're a nice laid back Midwest market. So there aren't as many of them. And I don't think they're as vicious as some of the other major markets. So Steve, you work in one, Boston. Okay. So why don't you give us your take on the Aaron Rodgers situation?
Well, the interview he did with Pat McAfee, I thought he came off really bad. I thought he came off really arrogantly, and I mean, he's always had that aspect of his personality that's been out there. But I thought it really came out in that. But the big thing, and I think that a lot of people are upset with, is because we know the NFL is arbitrary the way they enforce a lot of their rules and protocols right now with this COVID stuff. And they had, they said this summer they were going to be very strict with their protocols, and that, unvaccinated players would not be able to travel with the team. They were supposed to be wearing masks when they were in meetings and whatnot. And then, Mike Freeman from Bleacher Report had posted all these pictures every time the Packers go on a road game. There's Aaron Rodgers maskless getting on the plane with the head coach. So a lot of people are upset about that, because they were like, the league they'll slap Green Bay on the wrist where they wouldn't do it with other teams. And we'll see what happens with all this. But I just thought he came off really badly in that interview with Pat McAfee. And again, is it the end of the world? No, but at the same time, he kind of misled people, and it's just a bad look.
Yeah. I can tell Ray a lot of things, but don't mislead the public. They don't. I mean, either you're vaccinated or you're not. I mean, not everybody's vaccinated. They have their reasons for doing it. I know he was looking for alternative medicine to try to do it. I get that. Okay. I mean, let's face it, in a perfect world, everybody would be vaccinated. I realize that even vaccinated individuals are still getting COVID-19, but just don't mislead anybody or don't lie. If you have your reasons for not doing it, okay, I'll get it. Although I can tell you right now, losing my aunt to COVID-19, pretty hard sell. Mr. COVID, Curti here, who will give that COVID message at the end. Give us your take on Mr. Rodgers.
Well, people are saying that he misled people. He lied. He didn't mislead nobody. He just is a fat out liar, and, he's, he hasn't been, the way he's been acting, he's been very Brett Favre-ish, kind of like the diva, the center of attention, kind of making these ultimatums, getting his head coach fired. They wanted the GM gone, talking bad about the Packers. And then he tells people, I'm vaccinated. And I've never seen him wear a mask, so I wasn't really surprised that he got COVID. But he lied. And I agree. He went on talk shows and he looked like a jerk. He was very arrogant. He was he was laughing. He was saying things like woke mob and witch hunt and all these other real crazy things, like he's a victim and all that stuff. So people are just upset with him. I'm upset with him because he lied to people, because he put people's lives at risk, not being vaccinated, which they probably thought he was vaccinated. He could say he can dance all around it, but he lied. So if Aaron Rodgers, when he retires, he should go into politics, because, I mean, that's pretty much, what he was doing, just dancing around it and then just going on TV and radio shows and just acting like a jerk. In my opinion, he was just saying things that were just not true. And to me, he just comes off as an one of these anti-vaxxer people that are taking these extreme, I mean, listen to people like Joe Rogan and taking stuff that doctors have said that will not help you with COVID. He's saying things that he's allergic to an ingredient in there, but won't say what it is. He said he didn't want to take the Johnson & Johnson because it caused blood clotting, but yet They fixed those problems. So the stuff he's saying is just absolutely, he's spreading misinformation. And I think that's where a lot of people are upset with him on that.
Yeah, the only advice I'll give to Mr. Rogers is trademark the word immunized. Okay, that's what I would just trademark the word immunized, and then we'll know where you really stand. Okay, and on that humorous note, okay, let's talk about one person that has made a lot of news for the most interesting reasons. Odell Beckham Jr. I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to predict where the best spot is. And I'm going to start off with Steve Balestrieri. Would he be a good fit with the New England Patriots, knowing that Bill Belichick straightened out Randy Moss?
Nope. I don't believe. If you asked me this question a couple of years ago when Tom Brady was still quarterbacking the Patriots, I would have said yes. Okay. Because between Belichick and Brady, Beckham has made it very clear he has a great deal of respect for both of those. But the Patriots have changed. They're starting to, carve an identity as a power running football team. They ran the ball 39 times through 18 against the Panthers. Beckham he's not going to be happy going to a team like that where he might get the ball thrown to him 2 or 3 times during the game. That's not going to make him happy. He's playing for a new contract. The Patriots are not a passing team right now. And, I just don't think with a rookie quarterback, he's going to be happy there. I know a lot of people keep saying he's going to go to New England. I just don't see it. I've been telling other Patriots fans all day long, I don't expect him to sign with New England. I think he's going to go elsewhere. If I was a betting man, I'd say, the Saints or maybe even the Packers. Although I heard earlier this evening the Packers are saying they're not interested, but that might be subject to change.
Okay, with that said, where do you think he should go?
I think the Saints.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he'd be a good fit with the Saints.
Okay, fair enough. Greg?
To me, the two teams that make sense are Green Bay and Kansas City. They both have elite quarterbacks. They both have elite number 1 wide receivers, but both are desperate for that number 2 wide receiver. And I think both Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, depending on where he goes, they'll keep Beckham in line, and I think he'll get enough passes. Because with everything you hear Beckham's a great guy, a great teammate, but obviously he starts wearing out his welcome when he starts whining about not getting enough passes. And as the number 2 wide receiver in those 2 offenses, he should get a decent amount of targets.
Yeah, how did things work out when he left Cleveland over the weekend? Well, I tell you right now, Cleveland put up a 41 spot, didn't they? All right, Mel, take it from there. I'm handing you the ball to talk about Beckham, knowing full well that the Cleveland Browns show went on, and they went on at a pretty impressive win over their state rival, the Cincinnati Bengals, over the weekend.
Well, make no mistake about it. Cleveland's a running football team, and everything is predicated off the run. I think Chubb had 130 some odd yards on 13 carries or something ridiculous like that. I mean, he almost averaged 10 yards a carry. So, I mean, they're a running football team, and that marriage was never going to work with Odell going there because they're always going to be a run-first football team. He needs to go somewhere where they have a strong veteran quarterback. I think the Rams or Pittsburgh, something like that. Going to New Orleans is intriguing because obviously they lost Michael Thomas for the rest of the year. Now that just came out last week, but you got Jameis there, and he can be up and down. That could be an interesting. That could be Jameis is hurt now, so now they got Trevor Siemian there rather. So I don't know about that and how that would work. I know he wants to go somewhere where he has an opportunity to win a championship, go deep in the playoffs. So the Rams, maybe the Steelers, even the Seahawks. I know there's been some talk about the Seahawks. That might be a good place for him to land. I don't know what teams had the cap space that could absorb Odell Beckham, whatever kind of salary he'd be able to get at this particular point in time. But those are the 3 teams the 2 teams I would look at would be the Steelers and the Rams.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, his stock has plummeted so much. He's been, they're saying he's a great teammate, but he comes off as a diva and as a whiner all the time. always wants to be the star of the show. He's not going to be this elite receiver that he thinks he is. And if I was, going to pick a team I'd go to, I think Seattle would be a good choice. I know Russell Wilson was wanting him there. They want to keep Russell happy. You don't know whether he wants to stay there or go there. He's back being healthy. He said he liked Beckham there. I think they want to make him happy. So I think that'd be a pretty good fit. But I mean, he's not going to get what he wants. He's not going to go to like the Buccaneers or some team that's or Arizona that's contention for the Super Bowl. So maybe he'll go back to the Giants or the Jets. Who knows? He's kind of a has-been now, and I don't think he's any use for anybody, especially with all the drama and all the baggage that he brings.
Yeah, if I were going to make a guess on where I think he should go, number one, I think New Orleans could use him with Michael Thomas. Even though you don't have a veteran quarterback there, you still have Sean Payton. So Sean Payton knows how to handle things pretty well. But the one that I really would favor the most would be the Kansas City Chiefs, because Sammy Watkins left and they need a number 2 guy. And when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, I think that would make the most sense. But we'll see. Those would be the 2 ones that I would go with. All right, Rick, since you were jumping ahead of this a little bit earlier today about the Jacksonville Jaguars, we're going to have some fun with you and we'll talk about it. Okay, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, as I mentioned before. Okay, they defeated Miami earlier. Now they defeated Buffalo 9-6. Shad Khan obviously has been a very patient man. I think Urban Meyer is feeling a little bit less heat finally because the Jaguars have a couple wins. But nevertheless, Jacksonville defeated Buffalo 9-6, as I just mentioned moments ago. So I know that, tell me that the word sigh of relief or how Urban Meyer is feeling. Josh Allen sacking Josh Allen. Well, I don't know if I'm a math guy, but Josh Allen to the second power. And then we got math people involved in this whole thing. Now, I got to tell you folks out there that I remember a few years back that Blake Bortles was the quarterback when the Jacksonville Jaguars defeated the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs 10-3, that ultimately led them to the AFC Championship game, as Steve Balestrieri knows. And I actually had an opportunity to meet Mike Mayok and Ian Eagle during halftime, both of which are good people. So as we go ahead and size up what happened with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Rick, beating Buffalo, what were your impressions of how that played out?
That was a terrible game. I mean, that's a baseball score. The Jaguars are terrible. The Bills, I don't know what's going on with them. I mean, I had Josh Allen as my pick for MVP. And he sacked himself. They don't look very good right now, Buffalo. I'm very surprised how bad they look. So that was you talk about an ugly win. That was a very, very ugly win. But I know Urban Meyer's happy, and whether he stays with Jacksonville next year, I mean, I don't know. LSU's out there and USC's out there, and does he want to go back to college? Does he like the pros? I mean, I don't know. So I think that's the intriguing one. But a win's a win, as ugly as that was. But it's an impressive win because the Bills are a very good team last year. Josh Allen was an MVP candidate last season, and I don't know what's going on with Buffalo, but it was an impressive win. I was surprised. That was my upset right there. I didn't see that coming, and it was just poorly played. It was just, 9-6 is a baseball score, so not a lot of offense there. But they got a couple of wins now, Jacksonville, and Khan's happy, and I'm sure Urban Meyer. You don't hear about any more issues with him right now, and I'm glad, and I'm sure he's happy that that's behind them. So hopefully they can put it together. But Jacksonville's just not a very, very good team. Probably going to win maybe 3-4 games, but they're rebuilding. So we'll see what happens with them. But I want to see what happens with Urban Meyer after the season. Is he going to stay there, or is he going to bolt to college and go to LSU or USC?
Yeah, I don't see Urban Meyer going to college. I really don't. I think he's got himself dug in here. If he keeps everything clean, he's got the most patient owner on the planet with Shad Khan, who stayed with Gus Bradley and Doug Marrone. So I think Urban Meyer will have a chance to see his plan through. I don't see him going back to college. The last thing you want to do after year one, I mean, there aren't many Bobby Petrinos around, okay, that'll leave in the middle, okay,
or Nick Saban.
To go, but that's another day for another story. But I think Urban Meyer, if he keeps it clean and quiet and these guys develop, they'll have an opportunity to see this thing through. I have no doubt about that. But I was happy for the Jaguars that they were able to pull out a win. 9-6, it doesn't make any difference. How many times we talk about winning ugly on this show? I don't know. Should we title it Winning Ugly? No, there's probably other things that we can probably.
How about winning grotesque? It was more than ugly. It was grotesque.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of a whole lot of things we're talking about tonight. But yeah, but if Urban Meyer keeps it clean all year, he survives. And I'm happy for the Jaguars because let's think about it. They've been hit by the injury bug quite a bit too. And it'll be good to see what happens with a full deck instead of the limited one. So Greg, what are your thoughts about the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Buffalo Bills?
I didn't get to see the game because I was watching that scintillating Texans-Dolphins game. But if nothing else, the rest of the football world realizes now that there's another Josh Allen in the league who's a heck of a football player. And I talked to a friend of mine today who was a diehard Bills fan. He went up to the game, and he's blaming most of their recent trouble because they've lost two of them, struggled to beat the Dolphins. And I guess they've had several injuries to their offensive line, which he thinks is the crux of their problem. So not sure how accurate that is, but he knows more about the Bills than I do. So I'll go with him. And as someone who watches an awful Dolphins offensive line every week, I know how important a good offensive line is to winning football games.
Okay, Mel, what are your thoughts about the Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills?
I was surprised when I saw the score. That it was that low, number one, and that Jacksonville ended up winning that game. I think, it's good for, obviously, the morale for that team. We talk about whether Urban Meyer is going to stay or leave or not. You remember the Cowboys. I mean, I think they went 1-15 in Jimmy Johnson's first year. Yep. Well, it takes time to we know Urban's a great coach. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. If he has an opportunity to put his system in, get his guys in, I'd like to see what he could do on the professional level, and hopefully he sticks out. Florida was his health. Ohio State, it was his health. So we just have to kind of see how things go there. But I would like to see what he could do there in Jacksonville, and turn that team, because Jacksonville's they've been a tough out. I mean, they've been one of those teams that's been a very difficult team to beat. Going back to when Jack Del Rio was coaching there, I mean, they always played very good defense, and they were a tough out. I mean, you had to tighten your chin strap. Make sure your chin strap was on tight, because it was going to be a very physical football game. So it's always nice. I mean, when Jacksonville was one of those tough teams to beat, and even when Coughlin came back, and he was upstairs in the front office, and that year they went on a little run. They were tough. They're a tough football team. So it'd be nice to see Jacksonville be that type of football team again. And, hopefully Urban Meyer will give it an opportunity and see this thing through. Hopefully the ownership will give them the opportunity to see it through, because you just can't make those, you can't go from being bad to good overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. It's not like college football. It's a little bit different. You got to give the guy an opportunity to get his players in there, get his system in there, and then see where it goes. I mean, you're probably looking at a 3-4 year deal, that it's going to take in order to get Jacksonville back on the right track.
Well, if Urban Meyer leaves the drama out of the equation, he's fine. But I'll tell you what, Steve Balestrieri, I love the reference that Mel made comparing Jimmy Johnson, a 1-15 team, with Dallas, give him time, and then he gets it done. Urban needs to keep the drama out of it. If he can do that, focus on coaching, he'll be fine. But Mel makes a great reference, Steve and the rest of you, about Jimmy Johnson 1-15 to see the progression. And I do believe, having covered the Jaguars a few years, that's a sleeping football town, pro football town, waiting to erupt. Just give them something to cheer about. Take over, Steve.
Well, I think Mel hit the nail on the head right at the outset of the show tonight when he said it's really hard to win in the NFL this year. And I think parity is really coming into play. We saw, but I still think Buffalo is one of the best teams in the AFC. They stumbled They get beat. They played really poorly. But then a couple of weeks ago, we saw the Tennessee Titans, who right now look like real world beaters, lose to the Jets. So, I mean, it's a crazy season. I think, this is a season that there's no layups going into any of these games. So, good for the Jaguars. I think, for them to hold Buffalo to 6 points, granted, the Bills didn't play well, but the Jaguars had something to do with that. So good for them. I think it's great for the franchise. It's really good for the team. They got some, they beat the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago. They won this game. They got a little confidence going. They feel like maybe they'll buy in a little bit more with what Urban Meyer's trying to do down there. It's a crazy season, and there are no layups. I mean, we've seen it too many times this year. Again, I mean, I thought Kansas City was going to blow out the Packers with Jordan Love, and as bad as he played, it was still a one-score game. So, good for the Jaguars, good for Urban Meyer. I mean, I'm not a Buffalo fan, as you can tell, so it didn't break my heart that the Bills lost to Jacksonville. But no, at the same time, I mean, these things are going to happen every week.
Yeah, no, that's true. I could hardly tell your allegiances toward the Bills, knowing that the Patriots are in the same division. I'm kind of glad you brought that one up, and you really let me. Well, all right. So Buffalo fans, Steve Balestrieri is riding your coattail. So New England fans out there, Steve gives you I'm sure that you were definitely pulling for the Jaguars for sure. So
all right, but I still think Buffalo is going to be a Final Four team in the AFC.
We're going to talk about something I'm really not overly crazy about talking about, but unfortunately we have no choice but to talk about it. And that's the Las Vegas Raiders cutting 2 first-round 2020 picks. Henry Ruggs, we know about the fatal car crash. We didn't mention it last week on our show only because we didn't have enough information. We know now that he's been cut by the Raiders, and now the most recent cut is Damon Arnett, who threatened to kill someone while holding multiple guns in a video. I did mention GM Mike Mayok has a thankless job with all this turmoil. Of course, he had to deal with the John Gruden debacle. And yet a third top pick from the 2020 draft, Lynn Bowden Jr. was traded to the Miami Dolphins last year before the regular season. So with everything I've just said out here, believe it or not, the Raiders are still tied for the top spot in the AFC West with a 5-3 record, despite the tumultuous season. And they recently signed Deshaun Jackson to replace Ruggs. And interim coach Rick Bisaccia is making a great case to get that full-time job. So with that, Greg, go ahead and lead off. What's your take about what's going on with the Raiders?
I mean, it's mind-boggling what happens. I mean, any team in a given season can have bad luck, quarterback getting injured, some other Pro Bowl players getting injured. Maybe you're not playing well and the coach gets fired for cause, but a coach fired, for all these allegations he made via email, and then losing 2 players for significant off the field issues, which I guess you can just chalk both of them up to incredible stupidity. I mean, driving a Corvette at 156 miles an hour, twice over the legal drinking limit. And I don't know if the other guy may have some mental issues that need some assistance, but it's just mind-boggling. A team could lose a head coach and 2 players over issues like that. Injuries are one thing, but that other stuff, that's just mind-boggling. And then losing 2 first-round draft picks from last season, that could set back the franchise.
Mel?
It's an unfortunate situation what happened with Ruggs. Obviously my condolences go out to the family of that young lady. It's terrible tragedy. I mean, that's a absolute worst case scenario that can happen if you're, decide to get behind the wheel and you're intoxicated. And I hate it for the young man as well, because obviously he has to live with that. And then he's going to have to pay the consequences for it as well. And it was obviously a lapse in judgment. It's a steep price to have to pay. You could probably say his professional career is over. And because in the state of Nevada, there is no probation when there's a death involved in a drinking and driving offense. So, he's going to do at least 2 years, and he has numerous other charges that he's been hit with as well. So you can pretty much say that his career is over. Now, the other guy, I don't understand why people like to put so much of their life on social media. I just don't understand that, where they want to share so much of what it is that they're doing on social media and don't think that that's going to have, they're going to have suffer some sort of repercussion for it. I mean, where did he feel that was okay to do that and think that it was going to be okay with his employer for him to come back to work after he just did something like that? I don't understand it. I mean, these young kids, I mean, we were all young at one particular time, and you think you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and we all do some pretty dumb things, but I think we all, maybe because of our upbringing or whatever the case may be, there's a certain line that you just don't cross. And obviously we didn't grow up in the age of social media either. And so, I'm just not a big person in sharing a whole lot of stuff that's going on in my life on social media. And so why somebody would do that, jeopardize their good job. I mean, he as a number one draft pick, you're going to get plenty of time to prove that you can't play. And now I understand that he hadn't been playing that well, and there's some so there were some issues that he had earlier with some other incidents, a couple other incidents.
Right.
So I mean, he's treading on thin ice as a number one draft pick, because they're going to give you plenty of time to prove that you can't play as a number one draft pick, because obviously they're trying to justify that pick, and they want to give you every opportunity to succeed, so we can feel good about the draft capital that we've invested in you, that we're going to get some type of return on that. And for them just to cut them loose says a lot about, one, how they feel about the player, and then two, you got to kind of look at the guy that drafted him too. I mean, he wasn't playing that well. You weren't really happy with the way he was playing. I mean, maybe it was a scheme thing. I don't know. Maybe it was a personality thing. I don't know what it was, but it's unfortunate for the Raiders. If it wasn't for bad luck, they wouldn't have any luck at all. I mean, you get some stuff leaked out from the NFL office about John Gruden, you lose your head coach, and next thing you know, a couple weeks later, this guy's out there, just a huge lapse in judgment, driving that fast in a residential area. And bless that little girl's heart, she's out there with her dog, and then next thing you know, she gets hit in the rear end at 120 some odd miles an hour, and she can't get out the car. She can't get out the car, and that's a terrible thing for their family to have to live with. And it's a terrible thing that the young man's going to have to live with as well. And he's going to pay a very, very steep price for it.
Yeah.
And then, you have this idiot, he doesn't learn, he doesn't learn from anything. And he decides to go on social media and post the stuff that he posted and lose his job. And, the Raiders only in first place probably because Kansas City's playing so awful. Kansas City is just playing awful this year. But, they're, Carr, I have a lot of respect for him and the things that he said. The new head coach, he said all the right things too. A lot of respect for him and the things that he said, and just trying to keep this team together. I mean, wins are hard to come by as it is. And you have all these outside distractions going on, and they're still able to go out there and do their job. They're to be commended for that. But I feel real bad obviously for the victim in this tragedy. I feel real bad for their family. I want to extend my condolences out to the family, and just pray that, God's healing for their hearts, because I know their hearts are extremely heavy right now.
All right, Steve, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it's a terrible situation all around. In just the space of a few weeks, your head coach and 2 first-round draft picks are let go because of off-field issues. I mean, as Mel said, it's tragic what happened in the first incident because of, the lady losing her life. And then you have this other incident, which is, I don't understand it. I mean, we all have social media accounts because as a journalist today, you have to have it because that's how you spread the word. But I don't live via social media. I don't care about any of that stuff. And, it was funny. I was just watching a guy who's a little controversial in his own right, Dave Chappelle, who I really enjoy. I really like him. And he says he doesn't care about Twitter because it's not a real place. And I couldn't agree with him more. But so many young people today, they feel like everything in their life they have to put on, Twitter or Instagram or some, Facebook. I just don't get it. And to do something like that was just completely immature and stupid. I mean, what did he really envision was going to happen with the team by doing something like that?
Yeah, it makes no sense. Well, Rick, you used to live in Las Vegas. They're not going to so nobody knows what it's like to live in Southern Nevada than you. How is Las Vegas going to treat at least Ruggs? And of course, first of all, comment on everything that's transpired, and then we'll give you the Las Vegas take on how the legal system could play out.
Sure. It's just sad. I mean, I feel bad. A woman died, because this idiot was drunk driving 130 miles an hour with a loaded gun. And this is not the first time that he drove fast. He's been driving fast like that. And so this was just an accident waiting to happen. And he's facing 40 years in prison. Nevada is not like Los Angeles. They don't play around. I mean, look at O.J. Simpson, spent 10 years in Nevada prison, and so they don't play around there. And this other idiot, I guess he's got to show everyone how tough he is by pointing a gun and threatening to kill somebody. Well, you're out of a job now, and good luck trying to find another job in the NFL. So you talk about bad luck with the Raiders, I mean, the John Gruden, these two guys, it's amazing where they're at. I mean, any other team would have just completely fallen apart. And so you got to tip your hat off to the Raiders organization for just putting all that behind them and just moving on. And they did the right thing by getting rid of Ruggs right away. You cannot just, a couple of days later, right away, they just like the Patriots with Aaron Hernandez, get rid of him because he's gone. You're never going to use him. You're never going to have him. Someone died, he killed somebody, and that woman would still be alive if it wasn't for his stupidity. And that's the sad part about it. And people are very angry about it. And you see this happening a lot in the NFL where players are brandishing guns, domestic violence, issues with police. I mean, the NFL needs to take better control of this, do a better job of this. And it's just sad all around. And so this guy's going to go to prison for a long, long time. Forget about the NFL. He's going to go to prison for a long time. He's going to be like another Ray Caruth, and Ray Caruth is out, he's somewhere in Pennsylvania. Last I heard, people were angry with him after even 20 years later. People were so angry with Ray Caruth with what he did. And he moved out of state. And this guy, if he ever gets out, his career is over, because of just being stupid. But he's done this before, driving fast. And so it was eventually going to happen, and it just makes you very sad and angry that a poor innocent person died because of his recklessness.
Yeah, we've talked about the John Gruden situation. Who knows what will happen with him? We'll leave that for another time. But, when you're talking about driving under the influence, let alone taking a life, what can I tell you? Alcohol, especially late at night or anytime, is bad. So he's definitely going to get the book thrown at him. And I'm glad you brought up the O.J. Simpson, and Nevada doesn't mess around. The other guy, I don't get his philosophy about flashing a video with guns.
Yeah.
Stupid. But what I do want to do is mention three different people, though, who I think will look good when this is all said and done. Number one, I think Mike Mayok is doing a tremendous job trying to settle the ship over with the Raiders. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for Mike Mayock. I got to know him, talk football with him at the Jaguars and the Bills game during the playoff. And Mike and I spent a little bit of time during halftime talking about it. I have the utmost respect for what he's doing. I also have a lot of respect for the interim coach, Rick Bisaccia, who as I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, that I believe could be in line for that head coaching job if they could, whether they get to the playoffs or not. At least he got the opportunity earlier in the season to prove himself. And it's one thing to have to prove yourself on an interim basis. Okay. I get that. But when you're proving yourself under these kinds of circumstances with all this adversity and still getting your team to play well, then you've got another situation. And then you add Mayok into the equation, and Ruggs is out. Deshaun Jackson, okay, is in. I think Deshaun Jackson, Mel Farr Jr., could be a really fine addition to the Raiders, don't you?
Yeah. I think Ruggs was struggling. I think his first couple of years in the league, he was struggling trying to find his footing. So, we know what Deshaun Jackson brings. He's obviously a deep threat. He can still run. So it was a matter, he wanted more targets with the Rams. That's kind of why he talked his way out of the Rams to get an opportunity to get some more targets. So yeah, this could be a great opportunity for him. Also help Waller out as well. Have somebody else out there that they'll have to respect so he doesn't get double teamed all the time. So yeah, I think this could be great for him to go along with that running game that they have.
And Deshaun Jackson is a veteran guy, so obviously maturity-wise, he's just hungry for the football, wants to be in the right situation. I know we talked about Beckham earlier. I don't want to get any more conversation about him, but at least Deshaun Jackson is handling things the right way. Steven, I think he'll be a fine addition for the Raiders.
Yes, I do believe it as well. At this stage of his career, he just wants to play. He wants to be part of a team. I think him and Derek Carr, they'll build something there, and it'll be interesting to see. But I agree with what you said earlier about Mike Mayok. I think Mayok will right the ship there. He's a really smart dude, and they just need to pull together. I know Derek Carr's been saying all the right things as a leader should, and now they just need to circle the wagons and get back to playing football.
Yeah, somehow, some way, I don't even know why I feel this way. I think the Raiders are going to be okay if they're handling this amount of adversity with the individuals they have going. And I love the fact that everybody's talking about that Jordan Love, 13-7, how much worse it could have been. I guess we'll leave the old theoretical wonder, how bad could it have been if Rodgers were in there against the Chiefs? We'll never know. But if anything else, okay, the rest of the whole worldwide will realize that, it could have been a whole lot worse in Kansas City, and Kansas City won ugly. I don't want to go off too much of a tangent there, because I know that let's not give Jordan Love credit. He got involved in a very tough situation that he never anticipated. It's one thing to start your first game anywhere else, but against the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead, if you've ever been to Arrowhead Stadium, I had the good pleasure of going there one time, and that's a tough place to play, let alone for a rookie quarterback. So, I'm not going to hammer Jordan Love that bad. I'll give the kid a break here, knowing that he did the best he could, probably had a few jitters and nerves and so forth. But yes, obviously there's room for improvement. Matt LaFleur went ahead and owned it, that he could certainly make him better. But I think Jordan Love will eventually be fine. But Rodgers is the one that put him in that predicament anyhow. So I'm not going to
give him an opportunity. He opened the door for him. All he had to do is just kick it down.
Right.
That's what Jordan Love had to do. This was his opportunity to shine, and he looked like a deer in headlights out there.
Yeah, he did.
He looked like he was in slow motion, and everybody else was going 1,000 miles an hour.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing that I'm giving him a mulligan for losing. There's certainly a lot of room for him to grow, and hopefully he'll study what he ended up doing, get more reps, and see what happens. But no, there's no question. There was a great opportunity to impress the Packers front office, that he's definitely the ultimate successor, and his first act wasn't very good. So I'm not saying that, but
Tom Brady took over for Drew Bledsoe, right? And
right.
Drew never got his job back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And Drew was a pretty good quarterback. He's getting paid a lot of money back then.
Right.
This is what he should have done. He should have said, hey, I'm ready. He should have stepped up. But I didn't like his body language. I didn't like anything. I didn't like his body language at the podium before the game. And then in the game, it was terrible.
Well, there's no question he looked lost, and I think everybody knows that. The national announcers, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, mentioned that as well. It's certainly there's no secret that Jordan Love definitely looked out of place and uncomfortable. But, the Packers fans just better be holding their breath that Aaron Rodgers is back against Seattle over the weekend. Otherwise, you get another week of Jordan Love. But
they better hope Aaron Rodgers comes back next year.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's true. That's true.
And as bad as Jordan Love's stat line was on Sunday, Patrick Mahomes' stat line was virtually identical.
Yeah, he was terrible too. I mean, we said that. He was pedestrian.
Yeah, no, that's true.
He leads the NFL in interceptions.
Who that interception that he threw that he thought he was going to get a safety, the ball. I mean, that was terrible.
I think it's time to trade Mahomes to the Dolphins. That's my takeaway.
I don't know why.
Panthers.
I don't know why I suspected, Greg, that you were going to say that, but I'm glad you put it out there so Dolphin fans will take the old country song about dreaming a little bit. And I'm sure there's a million attributed to dreaming. But as far as the Raiders are concerned, somehow, some way, I think they're going to be okay. And I'm really happy for Deshaun Jackson that he landed the way that he did. Well, time will tell where Odell Beckham's going to wind up. And we've already made our predictions known there. So meanwhile, I know we've talked about some pretty interesting topics tonight, and certainly they were necessary to get into. And I'm glad that we at Mel Farr certainly likes to bring the deer in headlights into place. Okay, because you're right, Mel. There's no question that, my vision may not be 20/20 because I'm wearing these things called glasses, but I can see that Jordan Love certainly didn't look very good. But, for some reason or another, I am rooting for the Raiders to do well because of everything that they've gone through. I mean, how can you not root for them? They're almost the underdog. How many teams that have really collapsed under these kind of circumstances? Anybody can guess. So with that said, guys, I know we had a really good broadcast tonight. We've covered a lot of things. So with that, Greg, why don't you lead off and let everybody know how they get a hold of you?
I have a question for Mel before we do that.
Sure.
Mel, I Googled your dad the other day, and one of the things that popped up said he sang background vocals on Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. Is that true?
That is true. They just had, over the spring, I think it was the 50th anniversary, is that right, if I'm not mistaken, of the recording of that song. So, yeah, he used to have the gold album up at the dealership. But, I mean, it's a long story. They went into it. My dad told me one story about how it all happened. But they went into how he happened to, him and Lynn Barney ended up singing background in that particular song. Marvin always wanted to be a football player.
Could your dad sing?
No. I don't. But Marvin always wanted to play football, so I guess they made some kind of deal. If they got Marvin to try out, they'd sing background on one of the albums, and it just happened to be that record there, which is one of the greatest records ever recorded. So yeah, but that is true. My dad, he kept the gold record at his office. Didn't realize the significance of it when I was growing up, but did get to meet Marvin Gaye on a number of occasions, and he's always been one of my favorite entertainers.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Oh,
you can get a hold of me I write at southfloridatribune.com, and on Twitter it's gfuchs at Gregory Fuchs.
Okay, all right, Steve Balestrieri.
Well, just after I said that Twitter isn't a real place, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I write for PatsFans.com. I also write for and a senior editor for a military site called SoftRep.com. So I'm on all the social media places, even though it doesn't exist.
Okay. All right, Mel Farr.
Yeah, you can reach me on all the social media sites at Mel Farr Jr. Facebook at Mel Farr Jr. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. It's just my name at Mel Farr Jr. And then you can find out what we have going on here in Atlanta and also back up in Detroit for the youth, for the young people at melfarr.org.
All right, we know who's next, Mr. Opinion.
You can reach me at Facebook at Charlotte Bats. You can reach me at Charlotte MLB. You can also reach me on Twitter at Charlotte Bats, Instagram at Charlotte Bats, LinkedIn under Rick Curti. My website is www.charlottebats.com. And if you have any questions or information, my email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
All right, I'm going to give you a lot of things to look for with us. First of all, if you want to see these broadcasts, we do them simulcast, okay? And I repeat, simulcast, you can subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel at no cost. If you want to hear the audio, you can find them wherever you get your podcasts. I call it the marketplace. Wherever you look for them, you can find them. Some of the primary ones worth mentioning are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google. Geo7 is actually a pretty good one, worldwide one as well. And you name it, they're out there. So as I mentioned before, iHeartRadio is one of our big ones. Spreaker, I should mention that as well. Google, Apple, and so forth. So we'll put the etc. button if that isn't good enough. Okay, go to www.southfloridatribune.com. We post them there as well. As far as everybody talks about social media, whether we like it or not, we have to have it. You can find us on Twitter at Tribune South. It's at Tribune South. So with that said, you know, we're all over the place. Rick Curti does a wonderful job making sure he is aggressive on social media to get it out there. And I don't do much with Instagram, but for whatever it's worth, South Florida Tribune has an Instagram page as well. Some things are a little bit more effective as well. But, you know, listen, you know what? I'm understanding the audio stuff a lot more. That, you know, if you're on the iHeart radios, the Google and the Apple, and as well as the other ones, I realize that people like to listen to them as well. We're going to end it on this note with Rick Curti getting the final word about the COVID message. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, you know, it's been close to 2 years since we've had this plague going around that's devastated businesses, and, you know, 700,000 people have died from this. You know, and I just tell people to get vaccinated, you know. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm actually going to get my booster shot this Friday. So if you're eligible to get that booster shot, get it. I actually got a flu shot. So if you can get a flu shot, get it. The more protection, the better. Hopefully next year at this time, we'll be done with these masks. We can go back to our normal lives. You know, it's a pain wearing masks. I hate wearing them. I'm sure everyone else does. I never met anyone that says they like wearing them, but we have to wear them now till we can get this thing under control. And, you know, there's so much disinformation out there. We were talking about Aaron Rodgers earlier. Just ignore all that disinformation and just stick to the science, hear the doctors, what they have to say, and just be safe, wear your mask, get your vaccine shot, get your boosters, flu shot, whatever. And just don't be reckless. You know, just, you know, keep it to a minimum. You know, be with your friends, but, you know, just don't take any chances because this thing is still around. I think we're turning the corner. I think we're getting back, you know, to normal soon, hopefully. So I think we are getting better, but in the meantime, wear your mask, be safe, please get vaccinated.
Very good, Rick. So meanwhile, on behalf of Rick Curti, Steve Balestrieri, Mel Farr Jr., Greg Fuchs, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us. And we'll all be back next week here on the Sports Exchange. So, folks, stay safe and feel free to go ahead and watch this broadcast, share it with your people, subscribe to the South Florida YouTube channel, and check us out on all social media, as well as all the different podcast formats where you can find the Sports Exchange here on the South Florida Tribune. And once again, www.southfloridatribune.com. Candy Ambling does an outstanding job keeping it all together. So, on behalf of my excellent crew, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll catch you the next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.